My company's security footage showed me leaving, but I was still inside. The timestamp read 12:07 a.m. I watched myself walk through the lobby, badge the turnstile, and push through the glass doors into the parking garage. The gate was mine. The gray jacket was mine. The slight hitch in the left knee from an old basketball injury, that was mine too. But at 12:07 a.m. on that Thursday, I had been on the fourth floor on a video call with our Singapore team, my face visible in the meeting recording for anyone who cared to check. I was in two places at once, and only one of them was me. I played the footage again. The figure moved with confidence, with ownership. He knew exactly where the cameras were because he never quite looked at them. He knew the security guard's rotation because he timed his exit to the gap between rounds. He knew my patterns because he had studied them or because someone had given him the blueprint. I leaned back in my chair and felt the leather creak beneath me. The building was quiet now, mid-afternoon on a Saturday, and I had the security office to myself. I had told the weekend guard I was reviewing some incident reports. He had not asked which incident. People rarely question the man whose name is on the building. The question was not who. Not yet. The question was why someone would need to be me, walking out of my own company at midnight on a night when 3 prototype boards vanished from the R&D lab. I had built this company over 22 years, started it in a garage with 2 engineers and a second-hand oscilloscope, grew it into something that employed 400 people across 2 campuses. We made components that went into devices most people touched every day without knowing our name, and I preferred it that way. Anonymity in the supply chain meant stability. It meant we did not chase trends or court press. It meant I could walk through my own lobby without being photographed. It also meant that when something went wrong, the wrong people assumed I would not notice. I noticed. The theft had been reported on Friday morning by Daniel Wen, our head of R&D. 3 boards, each about the size of a deck of cards, each containing 18 months of proprietary work on a new signal processing architecture. Daniel had discovered them missing during a routine inventory check. He had called me at home, his voice tight with the particular tension of a man who knows he will be blamed for something he did not do. I had driven in within the hour. By noon, I had reviewed the access logs, the lab entry records, the after-hours badge data. Everything pointed to a gap, a window between 11:45 p.m. and 12:30 a.m., when the lab had been accessed by someone with valid credentials, but no scheduled reason to be there. The credentials belonged to a senior engineer named Marcus Hale, who had been on vacation in Costa Rica for the past week. His badge had been used, his PIN had been entered, but Marcus was sending me photos of Howler, monkeys from a rainforest lodge, and his passport stamps would later confirm he had not left the country. So someone had cloned his badge, someone had obtained his PIN, and someone had walked into my building wearing my face. I did not tell Daniel about the footage. Not yet. I did not tell anyone. I copied the relevant files to an encrypted drive, logged out of the security system, and locked the office behind me. Then I went home and sat in my study until the sun came up, thinking about who had the access, the motive, and the patience to build a mask that good. The list was shorter than I wanted it to be. My wife, Ellen, found me at the kitchen table the next morning, still in the clothes I had worn the day before. She set a cup of coffee in front of me without comment. After 31 years, she knew when I was working a problem and when I was ready to talk about it. She also knew that the former always came first. She sat across from me and waited. I looked at her hands, the way she wrapped them around her own cup, the thin gold band I had put on her finger in a courthouse ceremony when we were both too young to know what we were promising. She had kept every promise. I had tried to do the same. Something happened at the office, I said. I gathered. I need to handle it quietly. It may take a few weeks. She nodded. She did not ask for details, and I did not offer them. This was not secrecy between us. It was compartmentalization, the same discipline that had kept our marriage intact through product launches and patent disputes and 2 children who had tested every boundary we set. Some things needed to be solved before they could be shared. I spent Sunday building a timeline. I started with the access logs and worked backward, mapping every badge entry and exit for the past 6 months. I was looking for patterns, for anomalies, for the kind of small irregularities that accumulate before a breach. I found several, but none that pointed clearly at a suspect. Then I looked at the footage again, frame by frame this time, and I saw something I had missed. The figure wearing my face carried a messenger bag over his right shoulder. I never carried a messenger bag. I used a briefcase, black leather, a gift from Ellen on my 50th birthday. The bag in the footage was canvas, dark green, with a brass clasp that caught the light as the figure turned toward the door. I knew that bag. I had seen it every day for the past 3 years, slung over the shoulder of my son-in-law as he walked into the office I had given him. Nathan Carver had married my daughter, Rebecca, in a ceremony at our house 4 summers ago. He had been charming and attentive, a mid-level sales manager at a medical device company, eager to make a good impression on his future father-in-law. I had liked him well enough. More importantly, Rebecca had loved him, and her happiness had always mattered more to me than my own comfort. When Nathan's company downsized 18 months, after the wedding, I offered him a position. It seemed like the right thing to do. He had a young family now, a mortgage, a child on the way. I brought him into business development, a role where his sales background would translate and where he could learn the technical side of our work without causing damage. He had learned more than I intended. I sat with this knowledge for 2 days. I did not confront him. I did not call Rebecca. I went to work each morning, walked past Nathan's office, nodded at him in the hallways, and watched. I watched who he talked to. I watched when he arrived and when he left. I watched his hands, the way they moved when he was relaxed, and the way they stilled when he saw me coming. On Tuesday afternoon, I asked our IT director to pull Nathan's email archives for a security audit. I told her it was part of a broader review, nothing specific, just routine due diligence. She did not question me. By Wednesday morning, I had 6 months of correspondence, and by Wednesday night, I had found the thread. The emails were careful, but not careful enough. Nathan had been communicating with a contact at a competitor, a company called Vertex Dynamics that had been trying to break into our market segment for years. The messages used coded language, references to samples and documentation that could have been innocent in isolation, but formed a clear picture when read in sequence. Nathan had been feeding them information for at least 4 months. The prototype boards were not the first theft. They were the latest, and probably the largest. But the emails did not explain the footage. They did not explain how Nathan had become me for 45 seconds on a Thursday night. I found that answer in his expense reports. 3 months earlier, Nathan had submitted a receipt for a business dinner in Los Angeles. The restaurant was real, the date was plausible, but the amount was too high for a solo meal. I cross-referenced his calendar. He'd been in Los Angeles that week for a trade show, but the dinner fell on a day when the show was dark. I checked his hotel records. He had not charged anything to the room that evening, so I called the restaurant. I identified myself as Nathan Carver's accountant, explained that I was reconciling his records for tax purposes, and asked if they could confirm the details of the reservation. The host was helpful. Mr. Carver had dined with 2 other guests, a private room, paid in cash except for a small portion charged to his corporate card to generate the receipt. I asked if they happened to have any photographs from that evening, perhaps from a social media post or an event page. They did not, but they remembered the guests because one of them had been unusual. A woman who specialized in theatrical prosthetics, well known in the film industry, mentioned by name in a local magazine profile the host had read. Her name was Diana Welch. I found her website within minutes. Her portfolio included Creature, effects for horror films, aging makeup for period dramas, and a specialty section on what she called hyper-real facial simulation. The before and after photos were remarkable. In one series, a young actress had been transformed into a convincing replica of her own grandmother. In another, a stunt performer had been made to look like a famous politician for a satirical video. Nathan had hired a professional to build a mask of my face. He had done it over dinner, probably using photographs he had taken without my knowledge, probably paying cash to keep it off the books. The expense report was the only trace, and he had been arrogant enough to submit it. Arrogance, that was the thread that ran through all of it. Nathan believed he was smarter than me, smarter than the systems I had built, smarter than the people who had spent decades learning the difference between ambition and theft. He believed he could wear my face, walk through my building, and no one would ever know. But I knew. And now I had to decide what to do with that knowledge. I considered my options carefully. I could confront Nathan directly, but that would give him time to destroy evidence, to construct excuses, to marshal Rebecca in his defense. I could call the police, but corporate espionage cases move slowly, and I did not want Vertex Dynamics to have months to analyze the prototypes before any charges were filed. I could fire Nathan quietly, but that would let him walk away with whatever he had already taken, free to sell it to the highest bidder. None of those options satisfied me. What I wanted was precision. I wanted Nathan to face the consequences of his choices in a way that left no room for ambiguity, no space for the kind of narrative reframing that charming men use to escape accountability. I wanted him to lose everything he had tried to steal, including the trust he had betrayed. I started with documentation. Over the next 2 weeks, I built a file. I pulled every email, every expense report, every access log that showed Nathan's pattern of behavior. I obtained records from Diana Welch, who was surprisingly cooperative once I explained, through my attorney, that she might be implicated in industrial espionage if she did not assist with our investigation. She provided receipts, photographs of the mask in progress, and a signed statement describing Nathan's instructions. I also hired a private investigator to establish Nathan's connection to Vertex Dynamics. The investigator was a former FBI agent who specialized in corporate cases, methodical and discreet. Within 10 days, she had identified Nathan's contact at Vertex, a business development manager named Stephen Pratt, and documented 3 meetings between them over the past 6 months. She had photographs, timestamps, and enough circumstantial evidence to support a criminal referral. The final piece was the prototype boards themselves. They had not surfaced yet, which meant either Nathan still had them or he had already transferred them to Vertex. I suspected the latter, but I needed proof. I got it from an unexpected source. Daniel Wen, my R&D head, came to me on a Friday afternoon with a puzzled expression. He had received a technical inquiry from a contact at Vertex Dynamics, a casual email asking about certain specifications that seemed oddly specific. The specifications matched our stolen prototypes exactly. "They're phishing," Daniel said. "They want to know if we've figured out what they have. Or they want to confirm that what they have is authentic," I said. Daniel's face went pale as he understood. "They're trying to reverse engineer it. They need our help to fill in the gaps." I told Daniel to reply helpfully, to answer the technical questions as if he suspected nothing. I wanted Vertex to commit to using our technology, to invest resources in developing it, to leave a paper trail that would prove they had received stolen materials. The deeper they went, the harder it would be to claim ignorance. The trap took 3 weeks to close. During that time, I watched Nathan grow more confident. He stopped flinching when I passed his office. He started smiling again, the easy smile of a man who believed he had gotten away with something. He even suggested, at a family dinner, that I should consider him for a more senior role. "I think I've proven myself," he said, and I nodded and said we could discuss it after the quarterly review. Rebecca sat beside him, her hand on his arm, and I saw the way she looked at him. She believed in him. She had built her life around that belief, and what I was about to do would shatter it. I had not told her anything. I had not told Ellen either, though I suspected she knew something was coming. She had seen me in this mode before, years ago, when a business partner had tried to force me out of my own company through a fraudulent stock scheme. I had dismantled him methodically, legally, completely. Ellen had stood beside me through all of it, and she would stand beside me now. But Rebecca was different. Rebecca was my daughter, and Nathan was the father of my grandson. What I was doing would not just end a marriage, it would redefine her understanding of the man she had loved, and it would put her in the middle of a legal process she had never imagined. I scheduled the confrontation for a Tuesday morning. I chose that day because it was quiet, because the board would not meet until Thursday, and because Nathan had a standing call with Stephen Pratt at Vertex every Tuesday at 10. I wanted to catch him in the act. At 9:45, I walked into Nathan's office without knocking. He looked up from his laptop, surprised but not alarmed. "Richard, I didn't see you on my calendar." "This isn't on your calendar." I sat down across from him and placed a folder on his desk. It was thick, nearly an inch of documentation, and I watched his eyes flick to it and then back to my face. "What's this?" "Open it." He did. I saw his expression change as he turned the pages, the color draining from his face as he recognized the emails, the expense reports, the photographs of himself meeting with Stephen Pratt. He stopped when he reached Diana Welch's statement, and for a long moment he did not move. "This is," he started. "Accurate," I said. "Complete, documented, verified by independent investigation, and prepared for submission to the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office." His hands trembled slightly as he closed the folder. "Richard, I can explain." "No, you can't." I kept my voice level, almost gentle. There was no satisfaction in this, no triumph. There was only the clean, cold clarity of a necessary task. "What you can do is resign, effective immediately. You can cooperate fully with any investigation, and you can sign a confession that will be held in escrow pending your compliance." "A confession?" "Admitting to theft of trade secrets, conspiracy, and fraud. If you cooperate, it stays sealed. If you don't, it goes to the prosecutors with everything else." Nathan stared at me. I could see him calculating, looking for an angle, looking for leverage. He found none. "What about Rebecca?" he asked. "That's between you and her. But I suggest you tell her the truth before she hears it from someone else." He laughed, a short, bitter sound. "You're going to destroy your own daughter's marriage." "No," I said. "You did that the moment you decided to steal from me. I'm just ensuring there are consequences." I stood and walked to the door. Behind me, I heard Nathan's phone buzz with an incoming call. 10 o'clock. Stephen Pratt right on schedule, waiting for an update that would never come. "Your resignation letter should be on HR's desk by noon," I said without turning around. "Security will escort you out afterward. Leave the laptop." I didn't wait for his response. The weeks that followed were difficult. Rebecca did not speak to me for nearly a month after she learned the truth. She blamed me at first, as I knew she would, for investigating Nathan, for building the case, for not coming to her first. It was easier to be angry at me than to accept what her husband had done. Ellen held us both together. She met Rebecca for coffee, for walks, for the slow, patient conversations that mothers have with daughters when the world has shifted beneath them. She did not defend me or condemn Nathan. She simply listened, and she reminded Rebecca that love and betrayal could coexist in the same person, that understanding did not require forgiveness. Nathan signed the confession. He cooperated with the investigation, which expanded to include Stephen Pratt and 2 other employees at Vertex Dynamics. The prototype boards were recovered from a secure facility in New Jersey, undamaged, their value preserved. The criminal case took 18 months to resolve. Nathan received 5 years of probation, a felony record, and a civil judgment that would follow him for the rest of his life. Rebecca filed for divorce. The same week, he pleaded guilty. She moved back home with my grandson for a few months, then found an apartment near the office where she had started working part-time. She was rebuilding, slowly, carefully, with the same deliberate patience I had tried to teach her as a child. She spoke to me again on Thanksgiving, the first full sentence she had addressed to me since the confrontation in Nathan's office. We were standing in the kitchen, washing dishes together, and she said, "I'm still angry at you. I know, but I understand why you did it. I know that too." She handed me a plate to dry, and I saw her eyes were wet. "I just wish you had told me first, before you had all the evidence, before it was already over." I set the plate down and looked at her. My daughter, my only daughter, standing in the same kitchen where she had learned to walk, where she had cried over teenage heartbreaks, where she had told me she was getting married to a man I would later destroy. "If I had told you first," I said, "you would have warned him. You would have believed whatever he told you because you loved him and because you wanted to believe. And then he would have covered his tracks and I would never have been able to prove what he did." She nodded slowly. "You're right. I would have chosen him over you. I know. That's why I didn't tell you." She dried her hands on a towel and turned to face me fully. "Do you regret it? Any of it?" I thought about the question carefully, as I had thought about everything in this long, difficult year. I thought about the footage, the mask, the folder on Nathan's desk. I thought about the look in his eyes when he understood that his charm and his arrogance had finally met their limit. I regret that it was necessary, I said. I don't regret that I did it. Rebecca was quiet for a moment. Then she stepped forward and put her arms around me, and I held my daughter for the first time in months, feeling the tension slowly leave her shoulders. Some betrayals cannot be forgiven, but some relationships are stronger than betrayal, and love, when it is patient and precise and willing to endure the hard silence of necessary action, can survive things that would destroy something built on weaker foundations. I rebuilt my company's security from the ground up. I instituted new protocols, new audits, new layers of verification. I hired people who would question me, who would challenge assumptions, who would never assume that the face they saw was the person they knew. And I kept the mask. Diana Welch had offered to destroy it, but I asked her to send it to me instead. It sits in a locked drawer in my study, a reminder of how close I came to losing everything I had built and of the price of trusting someone who saw my life as something to be worn and discarded. I look at it sometimes, late at night, when the house is quiet and Ellen is asleep. I look at my own face staring back at me, frozen in silicone and paint, and I remember that the most dangerous thieves are not the ones who break in through windows. They are the ones we invite through the front door, the ones we give our names and our trust, the ones who smile at our tables and plan their crimes between bites of our food. I learned to watch more carefully after that, not with suspicion, but with the clear-eyed attention that comes from understanding how much can be lost in a single unguarded moment. Some lessons cost more than others. This one cost me a son-in-law and nearly cost me a daughter, but it taught me something I had forgotten in 22 years of building and growing and trusting the people around me. The face in the mirror is the only one I can control. Everything else requires verification.